Okay, guys, so part two here to my testimony. So I had a phone call, and this phone is really sensitive, and it cut off the phone. So it cut off the video, I mean. So, okay, so I had ended on a good point. The phone cut off on how I got saved. So I had said I responded to the gospel. So a lot of people will say, there's the debate of free will and God's choosing. I'm not going to argue over that because I'm not God and I don't understand it all, but there's scripture to support both. So for me personally, I do know for me, I heard the gospel and it was in my lowest time of my life. I'm pregnant and I'm feeling like killing myself because I'm realizing that was a baby. It was not a blob of tissue. It was not, just cells or whatever you want to call it nowadays. So I had put, when I cried out for God to forgive me on the couch, and I did feel a peace, I did. And that was before I felt I got saved. And, I had put 1 + 1 together. I had picked up my real first book I had ever read, although I graduated early from high school. I had picked up What to Expect When You're Expecting. And, 1 + 1, I'm like, holy cow, so all this truth is hitting me on every side, right? I'm feeling my son kick. I'm not looking fat, so to say. And that's all I pretty much knew, is that when you're pregnant, you're fat. And heaven forbid if you get fat, right? Because I had been brought up with models and an aunt that counted her calories obsessively and drank a lot of water. And, anyone who had some extra weight on them, kind of a judgmental family, right? Look at them. Look at their, their legs are fat, or their butt is too big, or their, whatever, their boobs aren't big enough, whatever. So, I mean, there was a lot of pressure to look good, in my family. I have no idea why. My grandmother was short. She looked a lot like Elizabeth Taylor, but she was really short. She was French. I don't know who made her the decider of beauty. I have no idea, because beauty is in the eye of the beholder. But so all these man-made standards, right, of what beauty is. So I just knew I didn't want to be fat, and I had trusted my mother to get me out of trouble, but that didn't happen. I got in a lot more trouble because of my mother. So I just, so the pregnancy center, my maturity now, is developed, and I'm looking at, car seats and baby clothes and everything. And all that nurturing that was just cut off was coming back. And, so I am really being convicted about, this whole thing with the abortion. And then I go to church just to think of my son. So in a sense, my son saved me. God used my son to save me. Usually when you become a mother, you become better, usually. So here I am just going to church expecting nothing, really, just thinking, okay, what will be the rules to raise my son better, right? Because I was brought up with a bunch of rules. I mean, don't put your your fingers on your face, don't eat this, don't drink water, count your calories. I did do a lot of diets when I was a teen just because of the pressure. I did Slim Fast and all this stuff. But when I fell after the abortion, my life just went down. I mean, I was dating this bad boy. I was eating tons of ice cream. So I had like this eating problem. I was eating tons of ice cream at an ice cream place. And I knew better, right? I would raid the cupboards to fill me emotionally. And I was just trying to deal with the sideways abortion. It will come out one way or another, an abortion. So it comes out sideways usually. And, I didn't understand myself that I was trying to deal with the grief of the abortion. And my mother actually took me out shopping in Manchester after that and let me buy tons of clothes to make me feel better after the abortion. I mean, it was over $100 easy. So she let me go and just buy a lot of clothes to help me feel better after the abortion. Gave me a car. None of that helped. None of it helped. And I didn't know that she was buying me off. And up to this day, I do not let anybody buy me because of my mother doing that. So, and that's a good thing. It's a good thing to not let someone buy you. So, there was just a lot going on with me. And then I go to church and I hear how much God loves me in my deepest need, my time of biggest need. I hear the gospel that Jesus loved me so much. He died on a cross for me and for my sin. And whatever part was mine, which was not really anything because I didn't know better, I didn't know what an abortion was, he reached down into my deepest need and saved me. And that's the kind of God we have. We have a God who loves people and he meets you where you're at. So, so from there, I was on cloud nine. Forget about my kid at the time. Here I am, like, I'm saved and I'm happy and I'm sharing Jesus with all this zeal and no knowledge. And my favorite Uncle Bill was just like, oh, geez, Melissa's got religion. She's got religion, and he's going around telling people are talking, all these people I know, because like I said, I was brought up with a lot of people in my life. All these people I know are like, what? And so there was a little persecution there. And, things said like there's not really a God. My father ended up saying, being an atheist, there's really no God. If you're real God, if you're real, come on down here and strike me with lightning. Things like that. And my mother, you act like God is right next to you. And she's agnostic, so she knew there was a God somewhere. Even with her Catholic upbringing, she didn't really, being in an orphanage and everything, she didn't really believe in a God. She just thought he was somewhere out there. But she's like, you act like he's right next to you. So that was a compliment, right? It was a slap in the face, but a compliment at the same time. And they don't know better. They're not saved. So, so with that, I just shared my testimony that I had gone to a church where a lot of people homeschooled, and I had never heard of homeschooling. So I'm like, what do you mean you can homeschool? Like, I never heard of such a thing in my life. And so I started looking into that, and with me graduating early, I knew that I could do it if I put my mind to it. And I graduated early on my own. I didn't have anybody helping me. I never did homework. I just knew how to work the system to have enough credits. I didn't have any support. I had nobody. It was just me doing that without even being healed from abortion. I think, because of the abortion, I was very hardened afterwards, and I just functioned, and that was something I had put my mind to, and I think it helped me in my way to get some kind of validation back because I had lost so much self-esteem. I think all the jobs too helped me get validation because it was all around the trauma, all my jobs, and I think that helped me get back on my feet. I was trying to pull myself up without realizing it. I dated a bad boy. He was my freedom. I was running around with him, hitchhiking, skipping school, what else? Just going to like the horse races, the mud races, the video arcade game, the arcade, the pizza place, just doing whatever I wanted, taking phone calls when I wasn't supposed to, him at my window, trying to talk to me and break into our house and everything. He was just my way of regaining, I think, a sense of myself after going through that. And then once I was dating my husband in '88, I had broken up with Mike in June because he broke into my friend's house. So that was a sense of loyalty. And then I dated my husband. We were friends, and then we just started dating. And so for 2 summers, we had an awesome 2 summers at his parents' pool, dating, playing Van Halen all the time in the background and just hanging out, movies, out to eat, him spoiling me, buying me clothes, buying me, we went to the mall and he had brought me like this little bear with like a topaz jewel in the bear, a glass bear that I had kept for a while that meant something to me. He was in love with me and he was spoiling me, and we had some really good dating foundation on top of the friendship. And then we had, I didn't share this in the group. I'm just sharing this now. So then we had gone over to live together. He quit school. I graduated early. I started going to college. He didn't want me to go. And then we got back together like, I don't know, a month or so after. And then we were living together. And my Aunt Kim had a place in Concord on North State Street for us after we were married. And, and we had been living, I had been living next to my Uncle Bill and my Aunt Tina. And so there was just a lot of chaos going on with graduating from school and everything. And then once I started raising my kids, I homeschooled them. I had no time with, very little money and having to get resources all the time to really deal with this abortion. And so it was a slow process. I loved my kids. I loved bonding with my kids, a very, very rich, relationship-oriented life. I took a bunch of Bible studies. I was mentored constantly. I had changed my life, did a 180. And then, even taking like Grace for the Wounded class for women to deal with a lot of stuff later, 2 post-abortive classes, the trauma class. And even now, as I have thought about stuff, I had somebody just say to me something about, this is a guy friend, and he had said that he appreciated my femininity. And that was a real struggle for me to get down to. Just feeling the ability to feel soft and sweet and gentle was tough to get down after having to feel like that's kind of how I was naturally. And then once the abortion happened, that was taken away from me. I don't know how to describe it, but not only was my child taken, but I had to protect myself while having an abortion, and I had to put the walls up in order to survive that abortion. There's no way you can go through an abortion and feel it. There's no way. I don't think there's any woman that I know of who has shared that she actually was present feeling her abortion at the time. I know I felt it up until they put something in me, and then I was in the car with my mother and I was feeling the pain. And I was thinking about this, how I felt the pain and nobody would help me. No, I mean, up until that point, it seemed like, I could trust my mother up until that point. And that's when I was like, wait a minute, something's wrong. These rods in me are hurting. The seaweed, I didn't even know what it was. They're hurting me. So that is when I started feeling. And then the time I was in the car, nobody was helping me. It didn't do me any good to feel. I'm in the restaurant. I had shared, I was taken to Weeks Restaurant on Store Street, and I was laying down on the bench because it hurt so bad. I had no medication, which I have shared that in the trauma class. I had no medication. She's like, what? You had no medication? And she was put out with her abortion. But, so I was trying to feel, right? And I couldn't feel because it didn't matter if I felt, because no one cared. So I'm in the car feeling, and I can't, nobody's helping me. I'm helpless, right? So little did I know, when I shared this last night, that I'm being dilated and I'm losing my baby. I didn't understand it. So I think the time I got to the doctors, there was no more feeling for me. My feelings were cut off. They were done. I was done. That's it. I was being disrespected, and I'm done. And so never again, I think I felt I would let somebody in again. because I had to grin and bear the pain and protect myself. And that's the only way you know how to do it, right? I felt like I had to disassociate in a way and put up the walls to be able to survive such a horrific thing. And nobody's talking about this, right? Nobody talks about how horrific abortion is, not only for the baby, but for the mother. You got to put the walls up. You got to survive. You got to get through it. And there's no way. I'm trying to think now, like, could I have cried the whole time through it? What good would it have done, right? I mean, I didn't even know, so it's not like I'm going to cry, but could I have cried through the pain? Could I have, what do you do when you're in pain like that, right? You just know that you've got to survive. So I think taking that with me in life has been helpful in some ways, and in other ways it hasn't been, because that pain never had gotten taken care of. So for a man to say, I appreciate your femininity, just that feels so safe. It feels so relaxing to be able to feel again, to be able to feel safe around a man again. Those doctors, he took more than my baby. He took my femininity. I don't think there's anything so bad as a man. It's bad enough when men are not treating you right? You get thrown or something from your husband, that's bad enough. But when a man takes your very essence away, your baby, right? I think there can be almost a hatred for men after that. So we have this feminist movement where women think, oh, I can do whatever I want, and I'll go to the doctors and I'll have an abortion if I want to. You're getting, the very act of feminism is like a hatred of men. You're getting your need met from a man. You're having a man mistreat you. So, having a man doctor, I still remember him, Dr. Black, gray hair, couldn't care less about me, basically just on the table, put this on, threw the pajamas at me, put this on, put your clothes back on afterwards, just a real jerk, right? But not understanding what he really took, right? When a woman loses her child, that's bad enough. And then the way I lost my child was horrific. It truly was. And so looking back now after, I'm still finishing up this trauma class, to say, wow, look at how you coped. Look at how you coped later on in life. The fight or flight is very common for women who have had an abortion. So to wrap this up, because I'm getting at 18 minutes here, I will be sharing more in the future, but some of it is, you have to get through it. You have to protect yourself. Some of it's normal. I think it's probably worse than a rape. I honestly do, because I think if a woman was raped, she would be protecting herself as much as she could to survive. And I think not only do you have to protect yourself during an abortion, but you lost a child that you have to live with. So that's what I got for now, guys. Thanks for joining me.